I want to welcome you all here to the heart of the Flint Hills in Strong City, Kansas. As far as I know, this is the second cowboy poetry gathering that's ever been held in the state of Kansas. They did one last summer out in Garden City. We wanted to be the first here, but they beat us to it out there. This is going to be the second one anyhow. And one advantage I think we had was that Garden City looked around for Kansas cowboy poets, and they found 3, and then had to go out in Oklahoma and Texas and get the rest of them to fill out the program. When we started looking around here, we ended up with a dozen or so, all of them from Kansas and all of them from the Flint Hills but one. Cowboy poetry is a tradition that goes back to the origin of the cowboy, which is way back in the 1860s. Cowboys sang a lot of songs when they were riding night herd or coming up the trail, and apparently made up a lot of poems too for the same reason, to kind of occupy their minds during the dull periods. And any of you who've worked as a cowboy know that about 80% of the time things are often pretty dull. You're riding along in the old days behind a trail herd for hundreds of miles, or in modern times you're driving a pickup for 20 or 30 miles. The other 20% of the time is violent action, sometimes fatal action or potentially fatal action. So the bucking horses and the roping gave you something to write about when things were a little bit smoother and easier and you had time to do it. I never really thought of it, but as I was growing up, we heard quite a bit of poetry, and that was from my dad, who's sitting right here in front of me. Would ride pastures, and he would recite poems he'd learned in high school. Charlotte the Frozen Girl, and The Ride of Jenny McNeil, and Sheridan's Ride. Not what you'd call cowboy poetry, and that didn't have to do with cowboys, but it was a cowboy reciting poetry anyway. And as I've looked into this, I've discovered that a lot of the old-time cowboys didn't sing cowboy songs or recite cowboy poetry. They did the same sort of thing. They'd sing hymns or they'd sing popular songs when they rode around the cattle, and then began to make up some different words to those melodies and add a little bit of the cowboy flavor to it.
Due to my being a veterinarian, a lot of my poems are concerning the veterinary profession and things associated with it. You know, some of them are about the ranch. But when I go out to work cattle, as I quite often do, there's one thing that makes me a brute. It's not bad corrals or the poor help they have, but that dog in front of the chute. You can drive an old cow up to the head gate and she'll stop like she had taken root. Not a thing you can do will make her go when she sees that dog in front of the chute. Use hot shots and whips, twist her tail till it breaks, and kick her with the toe of your boot. But she refuses to take one more step when she sees that dog in front of the chute. I say to the man, oh, please tie him up. Can't you see how he scares the poor brute? But he swells up with pride as he proudly admires that dog in front of the chute. That's sure a smart dog, the wise owner said. He's cunning and wise and astute. Under my breath, I'm cussing him out, that dog in front of the chute. Now, some dogs will nip them in the rear where it hurts, and with them I have no dispute. But the dog that inflames me and turns my hair gray is that dog in front of the chute. On certain places where I go out to work, there are ranchers I proudly salute. They're the ones that don't make me suffer the grief of a dog in front of the chute.